Buenos dias. My name is Leigh Landy, and I'm director of the Music Technology and Innovation Institute for Sonic Creativity. In this talk, I shall be talking about the Institute and attempt to demonstrate that it's a center with a vision, and it's also a CMMAS partner. Although you may have seen it, here's the abstract. In this talk, the MTI Squared Institute will be presented as a unique center in the sonic arts, possessing a global vision focusing on the combination of creative production, scholarly research, and extensive outreach. It also celebrates its international collaborations, not least with CMMAS. The Institute will be presented from a variety of angles to frame the other contributions, talks, and works presented at the festival, and will attempt to demonstrate a vision of openness and an attitude towards looking forward. So to start, once upon a time, there was a music department at our university. It was decided in the 1990s that it would not continue to cover the broad range of music, but instead focus on something narrower. It took many years for a decision to be taken as to what that would become, and the response was finally music technology. I arrived. Only one person was still at this university who had taught in the past. This was late 1999, and by 2004, we'd grown from just a couple of staff members to 8, and no postgraduates to almost 30. And our undergraduate programs were written, had started, and our facilities had grown and grown. So today we're 11 in staff. We have a variety of programs, and these will come up in this talk. Our key foci are electroacoustic music composition, sonic arts. We could call that musical production. Electroacoustic music studies, the scholarly area that supports this area of production, and outreach initiatives, whether they're community-based, workshops, or educational. We consider this an integral part of our work. But as I mentioned the term looking forward in the abstract, one of our goals is to be looking at areas that electroacoustic music has not necessarily been involved with, but could enhance its breadth. And so currently, we're looking at various applications of artificial intelligence in musical production and the scholarly areas, as well as virtual and augmented reality, because we can see a great future for electroacoustic music production within these realms. But that's just to name a few. So this is a general overview, and our vision has been summarized at the end of that abstract of openness and an attitude of looking forward. Now, what do I mean by that? Many universities will have a certain sound or approach to composition or musical practice. We don't have that music department. We're in a distinctive area that by some is seen to be somewhat limited, and yet we think it's an enormously wide horizon of opportunity. So that vision of openness means that we are looking for the broadest horizon in this field of sonic creativity as we possibly can, and that's reflected in the strengths of the staff members and the vision and production of our student body as well. And that attitude of looking forward underlines us. Most music departments spend a lot of time looking at the past and hopefully dealing with the present. We celebrate the past, but are very much rooted in the present and are looking forward. So that is basically the summary of the vision. But outreach, as you will see, is a fundamental part of it, as we shall return to as I come along in this talk. So let's look at this in greater depth. This can be illustrated in terms of the musical horizon that's represented at the center, And on the next slide, I'll demonstrate how broad that is by just mentioning staff expertise, our areas of scholarly research, and our extensive outreach programs, which will be exemplified with slides that follow that one. So these are just some areas reflected by staff expertise. This first list, obviously related to musical production, includes sonic improvisation, acousmatic and post-acousmatic composition, lowercase sound, spatialization, extreme multi-channel sound installations, soundscape, visual music, algorithmic approaches, live and mixed electroacoustic performance, sonic sampling, cross-arts collaborations, do-it-yourself electronics, live coding, telematics, radiophonic works, and sometimes we even cross swords with popular culture. Related investigations take place in analysis, the investigation of form, cognition and psychoacoustics as related to electroacoustic music, liveness, semiotics and meaning, access and inclusion. We're also involved with online tutorials, workshops, online learning, and software development. And the technological developments support our work. We are not led by technology. We're technology users who create technologies when we think it's, well, relevant or necessary to the things that we're developing. So let's move on to some research and outreach case studies, just to give you an idea of some of the things we're about. And many of these examples actually combine both research and outreach, as you will see. Early in the 2000s, I suggested a project that would investigate the loop between intention and reception in electroacoustic music. Rob Wheel took this on as a PhD project, which was completed around 2006-07. Articles and book chapters were written about it, and it now has a diaspora of about 7 countries around the globe where people are doing studies based on this original initiative. Our goals were twofold. By introducing electroacoustic music to people who had never heard it, we wanted to know whether the expressed intention of the music makers offered to people hearing it for the first time was useful in terms of their making contact with the music. So looking at the reception of a composer's intention. We equally were interested in finding out whether they'd be interested in hearing a particular piece or something like the pieces that we played in these experiments in the future. This music was played to people who had no idea about this music, music students who were not specialized in electroacoustic music, or perhaps that had never even heard of it, and specialists, so that we got 3 levels of data. To cut to the quick, after many, many trials involving hundreds of people, and carefully chosen pieces, of course, it was found that the worst answer to "would you like to hear this again" was 55%, and the highest answer was 80%. That's 4 out of 5 people who were in these trials who'd never heard the music before were potentially interested in electroacoustic music and sonic art, far above our original thoughts. So the results of this project and its methodology are of great use in pushing governments and educational ministries and providers to spend more time on our field, because people are interested in it, and once they become involved with it, often people opt to participate in it. Just around that time, the electroacoustic resource site was commenced with the abbreviation EARS. It started with a subject glossary of terminology with definitions which varied in time and around cultures or among specialists. And so we wanted an online resource to deal with our terminology, particularly musical, but also technological. We received a future grant for EARS, which allowed us to structure this glossary into an index, get it translated into a number of languages, and to link it to references published and online, And so a bibliography was created, which contains approximately 4,000 items at present. UNESCO adopted the project, which was a great moment for it. We're currently looking for funds, so using information retrieval and data analytics techniques, we can automate the obtaining new references for the bibliography, linking it to musical pieces, and finding new terms we should add to the glossary. But UNESCO also asked us, this is a great initiative, could you possibly make an ears for children? Because this would be so beneficial in terms of the future of sonic creativity. So the sequel, known as Ears 2, an e-learning pedagogical project, was born. That took about 10 years to make. It's had various sources of funding and is now available online in 10 languages. Part of Ears 2, you see on the image, create, learn, and listen. The create part of Ears 2 is a software called Compose with Sounds, which is now embedded in the site. This software is part of the Cypriot national curriculum. And the e-learning site, Ears 2, has been translated and adapted into those 10 languages and equally been recommended by CMMAS for use in Mexico and throughout Latin America. And we're hoping to see it further developed, more used around the globe. The age group that we focus upon is 11 to 14, but we've had it used between 9 and very, very old people. So it's not just for schools. Anybody can use it. The software is intuitive to use, and graduates of the software are ready for things like Pro Tools, Logic, and Max MSP. We also do high-level research, and Simon Emerson and I, Simon will be giving one of the talks, received a grant which led towards the book called Expanding the Horizon of Electroacoustic Music Analysis, and the creation of the software E-Analysis, that's capital EA Analysis, made by Pierre Coupry. This software has now been embedded in his E-Analysis software and has won several international prizes. So high-level scholarship certainly forms part of the mix. In recent years, the MTI Squared has been involved in the Interfaces project. Interfaces is an European Union culture project that had EARCOM in it. It had the ZKM in Germany, the biggest new media center in Europe, several ensembles, and was led by the Onassis Foundation in Athens. Its goal was to bring new music to new audiences, which we absolutely did. And it supported many, many workshops, loads of cultural activities, and Ears 2 and Compose with Sounds. Our degree programs involve a number of undergraduate programs, which is probably not that relevant to the audience today. We have a 1-year full-time and 2-year part-time taught master's program in music technology and innovation, and we have research MAs of the same duration. Our PhDs, which can be offered as dual doctorates with universities around the globe, are 3 years full-time and 5 years part-time, and we still hover between 25 and 30 of these at any given moment, although there's always room for expansion. Now I'd like to go on and just briefly talk about a few PhD projects to demonstrate that breadth and the looking forward attitude. And I start with a really quirky one from Sam Topley, who's had to learn a lot about craft, about textiles, as she's embedding electronics in textiles, in this case here, pom-pom. And these electronics are pressure sensitive, they're movement sensitive, and so on. And these can be presented as installations in concerts or the basis of workshop with people that have absolutely nothing to do with music or even textiles at all. A very exciting and, in my opinion, very unique project. Ahmed Patel, who goes under the name Dushume, did a PhD called Creating Noise in the Asian Underground. Originally, he wanted to do DJ work with a bit of a wink of an eye to Bollywood, but he ended up getting involved in DIY electronics, has been very successful in this, and has just gotten a major postdoc looking at inclusion in the field of electroacoustic music. We're very proud of him. David Holland got his PhD with us and subsequently got support for a postdoc developing resources for sound-based creativity in the creative economy. Essentially, he worked with our county's music hub, which is responsible for all music education throughout dozens and dozens of schools, and wrote course materials introducing sonic creativity to primary school children, that is earlier than the age for ears 2. And in fact, it's a training program so that they can use ear 2, and they're also able to use Compose with Sounds when they're doing it. So this is a very typical high-level and impact-rich outreach initiative. Francesc Martí, Catalan, completed his PhD on new media art with pseudo-random number generators and granular synthesis techniques. Often multi-screen pieces. Here you have very small screens linked together, but sometimes monitors on podia in installations or for performance. He samples image and sounds and puts his formalization techniques on them to make sometimes comical, sometimes very abstract works that have been performed and exhibited in countries ranging from Korea and Russia, across Europe and the Americas, and has already established his career shortly after the completion of his PhD. Virginie Viel, a French woman living in Greece, did her PhD on musical form as deployment of gestural energy in acousmatic music, sometimes with a little bit of soundscape creeping in as well. So in a sense, you could call her the mainstream composer of these examples of PhD work, and yet she developed her own personal individual voice whilst undergoing this PhD. And last of these PhD projects is somebody who's recently completed, Takuro, or Taku Lippet, who is also known as DJ Sniff, did his PhD entitled Listening with Hands, the Instrumental Impulse and Invisible Transformation in Turntablism. He is in fact a mature student. When I met him, he was artistic director at STAME in Amsterdam, the Foundation for Electro-Instrumental Music, and was already hugely known as an extremely experimental DJ, doing things I'd never seen with materials I didn't expect you would use as a DJ. And he proved to me that anything sonic can be undergone with DJ techniques and the techniques that he's developed himself. So this is an enormously wide range. We hold an annual concert series, 15 or so a year. There's a seminar series, there are symposia. The seminar series are for postgraduates. The symposia are on themes that we decide, or themes going across areas of interest. They're open to the public. They happen several times a year. We hold international conferences and festivals. So within the next 12 months, EMS 21, that is to say the annual event for the Electroacoustic Music Studies Network, which should have taken place last year, but with COVID, that didn't happen. This will take place in November. And our biannual festival, Convergence, run by John Young, will take place in early September 2022. The MTI Squared makes occasional recordings, but it also has an online jukebox that features student work, including a great deal of work from undergraduates. Just put MTI and jukebox in a Google search, you'll get straight to it. There are 3 directors of that Electroacoustic Music Studies Network, of which I am one. So we've been involved with that since its beginning in 2003. And the editors of Organized Sound are based at the MTI Squared, which is one of the key journals in the field, which is published by Cambridge University Press and is in its 26th year as I speak. This is a list of some of our partners. If you go through it, you'll see that there are universities, you'll see that there are cultural venues, and that there are conservatoires. And those conservatoires, on the whole, are pretty major ones. National ones, such as the KMH in Stockholm, and Sibelius, which isn't even on the list, in Helsinki. The Central Conservatory of Music in Beijing is the only national conservatory in all of China. But you also have studios that are production studios primarily, such as the GRM in Paris and Tempo Reale in Florence. And it's a global reach. We're now discussing a partnership with a South African university, which would then mean we'd have partners almost at every continent of the world. And I've heightened in this image CMMAS and Untrefi, because those are our two Latin American partners, and we're very proud to be working with them. Now, these partnerships are not symbolic. We're doing things with them. There's cultural exchange, there's research exchange, there's educational exchange, and they're beneficial to all of us. With the Ionian University, we host a summer academy together on the island of Corfu in Greece. What a nice gig to have. So we will expand these, but we celebrate them, and our PhDs often end up at one of the partners while they're doing their postgraduate degrees. Sorry for the blurs, but we have various production studios. The picture on the left is configurable by the user, and we can put up to, I don't know, 30, 40 loudspeakers in there, even 3D. The picture on the right is our black box performance space that can hold up to about 100 people, has extremely good acoustics, and because it's a black box, is entirely configurable for performance. And here you see a performance with movement. So we've had all sorts in there. Before finishing, I'll spend a minute or two talking about what I'm up to. I'll give an overview of the other talks and the concert we're putting on, and provide you with a closing word. So what I'm up to at the moment, in terms of musical production, I've just completed a piece for a festival in China and embarking on the 7th of a series of radio pieces. What I mean by that is that broadcasts from a single country are compiled over a very short period of time, very diverse radio broadcasts. And these broadcasts become the source material for a composition where the broadcasts are totally recomposed with universal radio elements and national and local radio elements. And this particular radio piece is a Mexican radio piece, which is being made in collaboration with CMMAS. And Mario Cruz, a student at ENES, is assisting me on this, making the broadcast, recording the broadcast, translating them, and giving me some social commentary on them. And he'll be working with me, feeding back throughout. So that is just another example of what's turning into a really successful collaboration. The ear site, as I mentioned, if funded, will go into AI, and that will means we'll automatically be fed new publications and will automatically generate new languages on it. And Ears 2 continues to flourish and bloom, and hopefully will become part of more national curricula in the future, so that more people will be interested in this area and be making the music. I'm also completing 2 books, one called The Music of Sounds and the Music of Things, that I'm writing with John Richards, who'll be giving a talk. The sounds bit is about sampling culture. The things thing is about do-it-yourself culture. And the other one is about being there and sonic arts, because there's so much that we benefit from when we see things live and the way they're supposed to be presented. I could talk about that for these 25 minutes, but you've got an idea what the focus is. Now, in terms of the talks and the concert, my colleague Brett Batty, who had a lovely piece in Visiones Sonoras last year, will be talking on audiovisual aesthetics in his Estuary series, which is regarding aspects of his visual music approach. Simon Emerson, a name that should be known to many of you, his talk is called Memories and Feelings of Sound. Do we talk enough or in depth about our musical experience in the sonic arts. John Richards will be talking about the subject of our book, The Music of Things, on sound things in relation to DIY electronic music and the thingness of making a circuit, and more. And John Young's talk entitled Partial Objects, A Perspective on Spectralism, will be a discussion of research into the internal structure of sounds, which resonates strongly with spectralism concepts of musical form. And that breadth again will be found in the concert, where we have audiovisual pieces only, one with generative visual music, another a dance piece, a third an evocative and mildly abstract audiovisual work, a fourth is a video dance piece inspired by Japanese kintsugi ceramic art, and the fifth a DIY audio and visual hacking piece. I hope that I've demonstrated to you that there is openness and looking forward at our institute. And I hope that some of you will be in touch with the future and engage with us. And I hope that you enjoy the rest of the festival. Here's a contact. If you have any questions or comments, please get in touch. Muchas gracias.